Good day, people. Shadow Eater, one angry pagan here. What the fuck is Rishi Sunak doing continuing down this bullshit of the ECHR? Like, it's gonna be one of the main things I think I'm gonna have to deal with when I go out into the streets trying to convince people to vote Lib Dem or Labour. Most likely Lib Dem in this particular seat. What, like, when arguing with when trying to convince people that the Conservative Party will, if voting for the Conservative Party will continue to send us down the ruinous path that we have been on. Why? And consider, like, there are so many arguments against it, like legitimate arguments against it, and literally no arguments, legitimate arguments for it. I'm I'm confused here. As I said before, I heard that Rishi Sunak is going around Parliament at the moment going, am I really that bad? Do people really think I'm shit? Yes, mate, you're that shit. You don't know how to do politics. And I've only been into politics for the last, 5, 6 years. I know more about politics than he does. Okay, maybe not the minutiae of the ins and outs of how Westminster works. But, like, how politics basically works. When I came into politics, I did my history lessons, and I'm still doing them. Sunak is incapable of this, apparently. I'm also really, it's really getting to me at the moment, and I do understand some people have genuine fears of these creatures, but the Tories are not rats. For a start, rats tend to be really nice, empathic, empathetic, and social creatures. Had rats. You can check my previous videos out, fairly earlier. Rats are social creatures. Rats tend to be fairly nice creatures. That's not Tories, and it's just it's a nitpick. It's doing my head in. There's a lot of conflating rats and Tories right now, and as someone who likes rats, like their discrimination is not warranted, whereas the discrimination of Tories is warranted. Anyway, nitpick aside, yeah, this ACHR bollocks is only harmful to society as a whole. Although, again, a lot of the argument, the problem is, now I know I've mentioned that there are no legitimate arguments for this. The problem is when I look at it, there was no legitimate argument for Brexit. None. And that Brexit was was one of the main things that got me into politics. I've looked at Brexit quite extensively. I've watched and listened to quite a lot of people talk about Brexit from every side. There are no legitimate arguments for Brexit, and yet look what happened. That's why I'm worried. That's the problem here. Now, I'm hoping that what the Tories have done will make it so that people just are like, why are we going to believe you, you fucking twat? You're all a bunch of liars. You said you were going to do all this the last election, and you didn't. came up with a bunch of gimmicks that didn't fucking work. So fuck off. I'm hoping that's the consensus of the voting public come the election. Now and come the election. I feel like that already is the case in quite a lot of the country. However, in some places in the country, brain rot has set in. Worse than my tooth rot. It's ridiculous. Sometimes it's really difficult for me to get into work, to bring into words just how much I hate conservatives. But the way they are now is worse than they've ever been. These people are bordering fascists, if not already fascist, in elements of the party. There are some elements who, whilst people I'm never going to ideologically agree with, they are less disagreeable. I can't believe I'm saying this, but David Cameron is one of them. Despite the fact that he's done quite a few despicable things, he's a Tory. What do you expect? But compared to the rest of his party, I mean, George Osborne is a lot worse to me than David Cameron. So yeah, I'm almost speechless at this continuation that Sunak is doing when it comes to this ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights. He wants us to leave that. Again, if you are English, Scottish, Welsh, or not from Northern Ireland, you are, by definition, European. All of those peoples are European peoples. They speak a European tongue. All of them. Whether that's Germanic, English, or Celtic, Scots, Welsh, Irish. They're all European. So trying to pull us out of the European Convention on Human Rights is fucking ridiculous. I will be honing that particular argument. I think is something that I am going to be heavily pushing. Being English, Scottish, Welsh, Northern Irish, Cornish, it means you're European. That is something I will heavily push, especially in this argument, and I have all the facts to push against any argument against it. Oh, but we're in Ireland. We've been separated for thousands of years. Not really. There's been plenty of crossover over those thousands of years. So fuck off. Not only that, but to get to where Britain is now in the first place, even when Doggerland was above the waves, they started to come from what is now the European continent. Now again, that doesn't make us all the same. There are different types of Europeans. We are just a different type of European. The problem is this British exceptionalism. Fucking drives me mad. So yeah, that is going to be one of my main arguments against the people trying to drag us out of the ECHR. Not only that, but my other argument is, and I know that people are going to be going, oh, but what about the migrants? Well, if we were able to work closer with our EU neighbours, now we're not in the EU, with our EU cousins on this, in a less antagonistic way, don't you think that things would actually work better. Yeah. Fucking ridiculous. Remove the friction, for fuck's sake. Not, like, it removed the friction in communications between Britain and EU. It really isn't that difficult, unless you're of an you're finding it difficult because of your ideology. Then you're just a fucking idiot. I don't know how, like, those are just two basic arguments. Two basic arguments. Now, my first one, obviously, comes from the fact that I draw from my pagan heritage. From Britain's pagan heritage. It means we're European. And the language we speak is a Germanic tongue that has many Romance influences that make it so that there are more Romance words in our language. But because we use more Germanic words, words of Germanic origin in our syntax, in our daily speech, and I'm more talking about the lower classes here, the majority of people, right? Because those speak a Germanic language, even like, just whether that's Germanic or Latin, I don't like that. That's both European. Both of them are European languages. Both of them stem from Indo-European. You know, just because we're an island, it really doesn't make us completely different from them. Like, we are different because we're an island nation, just like Ireland. But Ireland's not going, oh, we want to leave the EU, because they're fucking idiots in that way. Yeah. Let me know what you guys think, because, like, again, you know, these arguments are going to come up during the election, during the general election. They're going to come up during the local elections, and I already know it. But, and that's probably a good testing ground, to be fair. But when it comes to the all thing, the general election, we really need to hone our arguments here. Get them down to pat and make them simple and easy to understand. No, it's pretty simple. If you're just talking to English people, you're English means you're a European. Why are you wanting to leave the European Convention on Human Rights? Why do you want friction with your neighbours? What do you think is going to make easier with friction between our neighbours? Between us and our neighbours. Simple arguments. And often that makes them not able to answer their own question. Because they end up having to look at it and go, oh, okay, maybe not. It's fucking ridiculous. This behind me, my shield, yeah? All of this is European. Yeah? But the runes, whilst these, this is a good example here. You got the elder and younger Futhark, which is Viking, right? It's European, or the European continent. But this is Anglo-Saxon in here, right? And you might not be able to see it in detail right now, but I'm sure I showed my shield boss on this channel before. I have Anglo-Saxon Futhark here for a reason, to show the relation from us and the Vikings. And oftentimes it's very strange, right? When I'm watching videos on the internet, oftentimes a lot of these arguments are coming from people up north and in the northeast. That's hilarious. The amount of Viking DNA up there is ridiculous. Viking, Saxon, and Celtic DNA all up there. Oh, we're not European. Fuck off. Leaving the European Convention on Human Rights would only do us harm. It would not give us any benefits. The people that think, oh, but there's possibilities, there are possibilities. But what are the chances of a good possibility? To me, I can't see any. And I'm not an absolutist. But there aren't any legitimate arguments for leaving the ECHR. But these arguments that are for leaving the ECHR need to be simple and easy to understand so that it sticks in people's heads. Like I said, this one was more of a complicated one, I get, right? But my original argument of being English means we're European. Why do you want to leave the European Convention on Human Rights? Why do you want more friction with our European cousins? Let me know what you think. I'm. It's been going around in my head, and I had quite. There are farmers down here where this was one I had a fair few arguments with. Fishermen were worse, really. They were a lot worse. But the farmers have really come round. They've really come round to that argument. At least the ones I've spoken to, anyway. Those who were who were Brexiteers. Fishermen, I've spoken to a couple on and off over the last few years. Every now and again when I go down to the seafront, when I go down to the harbour, I ask people, so did you guys vote for Brexit? A lot of people are actually too embarrassed to even answer me. Some will come over and go, yeah, I voted for Brexit. And I was like, what do you think of it then? How's it affected your industry? Oh, it's ruined us. I can't believe I did it. Would you do it again? Yeah. Why? Sovereignty. But you've lost sovereignty. There are a lot of people that are still running on feels instead of facts. So we need simple answers, legitimate answers to these people that can still hit the fields. Especially considering, the connections across our culture to Europe. I hope that the Tories are roundly defeated at the next general election. Roundly defeated. They're looking at apparently now 153 seats or less, with Labour looking at apparently 150 odd or something, and the Labour looking at apparently predicted 403 seats. That's ridiculous. So fuck the Tories, as Supertansky tends to say. Make sure that instead of coming to into positions of antagonism with our own allies, we need to, as the left and the centre left, those that are a bit more wishy-washy, but still people that are on the left in terms of the centre, the left as a whole needs to unify a bit, just a bit. There are centre-left people in the Liberal Democrats. We can convince people who will vote Liberal Democrats because they're Liberal Democrats, and we can convince Labour voters or Labour members and supporters to vote Liberal Democrat or Green vote, or tactical voting. But again, simple answers, people, especially when it comes to this ECHR problem, because I have a feeling that if it does gain any traction, it'll be on the same basis as Brexit, which means it'll hit the feels and not the brain. Okay? Please. Let me know what you think. Again, fuck the Tories. Bless us, so say, guys, and good Wednesday.